and welcome to the Digitize Fully Charged Podcast. My name is Niall Ridgway and I'm joined as always by Pam Curry. Now today's guest is the fantastic Eric Curts. I have been a massive follower of Eric's work for a number of years, and today's episodes will see us dive into things like, will AI replace teachers? What happens when you upload documents to AI? Like, can you go and search for other people's private documents? We look at what AI should people be using. We look at how to get started creating your own kind of games with students using these tools. Honestly, there's so much fantastic content in today's episode. So without much further ado, let's jump in.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Digitize Fully Charged podcast. I am so excited to be joined today by Eric Curts. And Eric, it's a real privilege for us to have you on the podcast today. Could you tell our audience just a little bit about you and how you got into this world, and just tell us your story if you wouldn't mind?
Absolutely. Well, I'll do the short version and then, hey, we can dig in deeper if you want. But basically, I am an educator. I just finished my 33rd year in education. So I've been doing this a long time. I know.
Yeah.
I'm old. So basically, I started off as a middle school math teacher. Loved middle school math. Absolutely. Yeah. It's such a hoot with those kids. Really had a great time. I did that for 7 years and really did enjoy it. But I also loved technology. So while I was doing middle school math as a teacher there, I was also sort of the unofficial building tech guy. You know, if you had a tech question, go see Eric. You know, if your printer doesn't work, go see Eric. You know, I was doing trainings for the staff, you know, after school trainings. I just kind of went into that role. And then after 7 years of teaching, the district I was in created a position of tech coach, basically. They called it something different back then, but that's basically what it was. And I was like, you know, that might be a good match. And so I made the switch, and that was tough. It was tough. It was real. I had a hard time stepping out of the classroom, but I'm like, well, you know, I love this. Let's see how that goes. And so I did. I moved into that role. And so I was at that district for then another 14 years in that role. Mm-hmm. So 21 years total at that district. So I basically became a tech coach, training teachers and all that
stuff. So Eric, when would that have been? Sorry to interrupt. In a kind of like, so obviously I've got a kind of like timeline in my head of like education technology.
Sure. Absolutely.
What year was that? When was that you started doing that?
So I made the switch in 99. So I started teaching in 92. Wow. So from 92 to 99, I was a middle school math teacher. 99 was when I moved into the role as a tech coach. I'm in Ohio. And so at that time, we had a statewide initiative called SchoolNet, and the idea was they were trying to get more technology into districts. I mean, this was 99. We didn't have a lot of technology back then, and the emphasis was to get computers and connectivity into every school district. And so that's what happened. Is basically there was a flood of money for the state, for all around the state of Ohio, and schools were buying computers. They were getting internet connectivity. Hence the creation of my job. They're like, well, now that we've got all these computers and now we have connectivity, we need somebody to help teach our teachers what to do with them. And so that's what led to that. And so, and of course, you know, took off from there over the next 14 years. A lot of stuff developed over that time. And then I moved to a new role, still doing the same thing, but I moved to the Educational Service Center. It's basically a regional service center in Ohio. We have ESCs, and they serve like a wide range of districts. So I still serve the same district I worked in, but now I'm at the county office. And so I help support about 35 or 40 school districts up here in Northeast Ohio, doing the same thing, you know, coaching and training and PD and developing resources and things like that. So now I've done that for the last 12 years. So that's been that length of time that has got me to where I'm at here today. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny because it's a story that will resonate with so many of our listeners, actually, because I think a lot of our listeners have been that kind of like teacher in the school that knows about the techie stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you're absolutely, the story you described there of, you know, you end up being the person that does it all, and you usually start on a voluntary basis, and you know, because you're excited by it. And
Exactly.
I think that's something that all three of us on this call have definitely done.
Yes.
But what's really interesting to me though is the timeline of yours is really fascinating to me, because I'm not sure. Well, we're from Scotland in the UK, and I can tell you with a degree of certainty that there are still authority areas in Scotland that are not investing that money in technology and teacher training even today. And the fact that Ohio was doing it in 1999
Yeah.
is really quite fascinating.
Well, absolutely. And now I will say though, it has come and gone over the years. So that was because there was money, you know, I mean, for whatever reason, the state of Ohio decided we're going to do this with school net funding. And then there have been times where, you know, budgets have dried up, and who's one of the first persons to go? Well, a lot of times it's support staff, you know. And so I know I have a lot of friends who came out of the classroom, they went in to become an ed tech coach, and then I see them a couple of years later, and I'm like, well, hey, how's it going? Well, I'm back in the classroom, you know, because they cut that position, you know. And it just kind of comes and goes where, you know, if they don't have the funding, well, that's one of the first things to get cut. In general, though, I think most schools have realized the need for somebody in a role like that. Having said that, sometimes it's somebody who just wears a bunch of hats. You know, it may be somebody who, sure, they're helping teachers use technology, but they're also, you know, running the servers, and they're doing the grade book, and they're fixing the computers, and they're, you know, doing all these other things. And then that's a lot. And so that is, again, why what I do at the county office tries to help supplement that to give support. So if a school says, hey, we want some training, and we don't have somebody in our district who specifically can do that, then I come in and I spend a day with their staff training them and working with them. Yeah.
How did you build those communities at that time? Like, how did you learn about the different tools that you were using? So I'm thinking of any listeners right now who are maybe starting out in their first year of teaching, and they've gone straight from school to university to now, and they don't have experience of what it was like back then in kind of the tech world. So how did you learn about how to use servers? How did you find out about what the latest piece of tech was? How did you build those communities with others?
Well, I mean, it really does come down to learning on a need-to-know basis and poking a stick at things. I mean, that's basically what it is. So I'll be the first to say, I do not have a degree in technology. I have a degree in mathematics. Even today, I don't have a degree in technology. And so, you know, it's all learning on the job. Now, I think that's fantastic if somebody is getting a degree in technology, educational technology, whatever, please do that. I'm not saying don't, but I'm also saying in the end, the best way to learn is what's the problem today that needs to be solved, how to solve it. And there's no magic to it. I mean, you know, we click things and we poke sticks and we press buttons and we find out what works, and we Google stuff, and we ask others. And so over the years, that's really what it was. It was realizing, okay, here's the problem. Well, thankfully there are so many resources available on the internet that have just gotten better over time. I mean, I guess think back to 99, maybe there weren't as many. And so a lot of it was just poking a stick at it and trying to figure it out. But now, you know, from, you know, whether it's, you know, YouTube with a video for everything, or just going to Gemini or Chat GPT and saying, explain this to me, and boom, you know, you've got it. We are in such a better spot now. But back then it was, you know, trying to connect with similar people. One thing that definitely helped me was being a part of the Google community. Early on, I became a Google trainer, a Google innovator, and then that connects you with just thousands of amazing educators all around the world. And you can ask them questions. You can be like, hey, what are you guys doing for this? Or who has a
Yeah.
suggestion for that? And it's being able to find those like-minded people. So, whatever that community is for different folks, I think that's critical to plug into that as well.
Why did you choose the kind of Google background?
Oh yeah.
Was that what your areas were using? Or
yeah, that's what I was just going to ask.
Well,
too.
very specifically, there was a very specific thing that happened. So anyway, I had taken this role as the tech coach, and I don't know, a few years into that, I started wearing more hats, as one will do. And so,
Of course.
before too long, I'm helping run the technology in the district, and when I moved into a higher role there where I had more responsibility, right at that time, we had a economic downturn in our area. Like I said, things come and go and come and go.
Yeah.
And so here I am, moving into this, this role where now I'm really responsible for the technology in the district. And they say, oh, by the way, Eric, now you have no budget. Now, guess what? You don't have any money and you can't buy anything. And so I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I still going to provide valuable technology resources for our district if we have no money? And I discovered what was at that time Google Apps for Education. Now, this was early on, I would say across the entire state of Ohio. Maybe there were, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 other districts who had started to poke a stick at it and try to investigate it. So we were early on. We were one of the first districts. And I'm like, okay, it's free and it provides all of these tools and it's web-based and we can run it even on the old computers we have. Sign us up. And so it was because of necessity. It wasn't like, oh, we've got all this money, so let's buy the absolute best suite from Microsoft or this or that. We're like, what's free? Now at the same time, not only was Google free, it was good though. I mean, it was good. Now it's come a long, long, long way. So sure, it was a little more basic back then, but it was good, And so that was really why we adopted what was Google Apps and then G Suite and now Google Workspace over the years. But I rolled that out in my district, and that's what became all of my PD was how do we make the most of this? How do we use all of these tools in the suite to not only help us as staff, but to engage our students? How can the kids use these in ways that it's creative and collaborative and stuff? And that just, boom, I guess, right place at the right time, because once I started doing that, that was when suddenly schools all over Ohio, all over the country, all over the world shortly started adopting the Google suite of tools. And I had a bunch of training videos that I had made and I had a bunch of stuff, and it just was the right place at the right time to be in a position to now start helping others. And so, although I was still, I've always been, at a school, whether it was that school or at the county office, that's when I started doing then my own, side job. I created my own LLC and started doing consulting on the side. And so at that point, then I started traveling around the state and traveling around the country and doing stuff like that. So little by little by little, then that started building that second job that I do with all of the stuff with my website and all of that. Yeah.
So your website is controlaltachieve.com, is that right?
That is right.
And tell us what people will find there.
So I guess first of all, it's an odd name. I understand that.
I love it. I love it.
10 years ago, when I was coming up with the name, I thought it was cute. I don't know. I would probably pick something different today because it's harder to make a hashtag out of it. You gotta kind of pick something that's
bit longer,
a little more social friendly.
But at the time,
but the idea was, obviously for anybody who still remembers when you were working on a Windows computer, if it froze up, if it locked up, you could press the Control-Alt-Delete keys to bring up the task manager to reboot the computer. So this, though, I'm saying because I'm sure there's a lot of folks who have never had to do that now.
That's
There are
so
people
true,
that means
actually.
nothing to them. But 10 years
Mhm.
ago, it was still in the zeitgeist. It was still something we
Yep.
were aware of.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I thought it would be fun to make it my site Control-Alt-Achieve, with the idea being, hey, a lot of times as educators, we need a reboot. Our classrooms get stuck.
Yes.
We get stuck in a rut. We get frozen in the way we do things. And you know what? Technology could be a great reboot for our classes. And so that was the entire premise of the site, is let's reboot education, with technology and find creative ways to do things. And so that's where the name came from. And you know what? It's too late. I can't change it now.
No, that's,
So
it.
it is
You've
what it is.
invested.
So
Yeah.
that's where it came from. But what's there is just it's the hub of everything that I create. I just need one central spot. So what people are going to find there, of course, is all of my blog posts. I mean, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of blog posts going back for, like I said, probably coming up on a decade here. And those blog posts are going to cover pretty much anything. A lot of Google stuff lately, way more AI topics, but it's instructional things, it's projects, it's templates, it's things like that. People will also find all of my training videos there. I mean, everything's on YouTube, but I link it all in there as well. So all my webinars, my training videos are on the site. They'll find my edtech links of the week. I try to each week pull out, like, what are the really cool things I came across each week. That's a running thing on the site. They'll find a link to my newsletter. People can sign up for an email newsletter that, once again, I typically send out once a week, not so much in the summer, but throughout the school year. People can sign up for that. That's on the site. And of course, people can just find all of my resources. I've got a tab just for AI where they can, and just to be clear, everything I have, I release everything under a Creative Commons license, which means you can copy, modify, adapt, distribute, use any of these things. You do not need to ask my permission. All I ask is leave a link back to where you got it from, and I make it free, so you keep it free as well. Put your spin on it, but spread it out to the rest of the world. And so, people can go there and they can find all of my training documents, all of my slideshows, all of my videos, it's all there. And hey, if you're doing a training on something related to AI or Google tools or accessibility, you want to make a copy of my slideshow, have at it. That's what it's all there, to learn or to use however you want. So that's it. It's just this big spot where all that stuff is going to be found.
That's amazing, Eric.
It was your videos that, when I started my edtech journey, that really got me started as well, because I was searching for how to use different Google tools, how does this all link in together, and so it's really nice that 5 years later or so, we've come full circle where I'm talking with you now, not in person but in live time, which is, it's lovely.
Oh, Niall, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Have you got a bit of a fanboy thing going on?
For anyone listening, I've gone very red.
I'm glad to hear that, because I know we were chatting before we even started. We're not always sure. We're not sure if the things we create are making a difference. We don't know. We just try to put it out there, and we hope, we hope that helps. And sometimes you hear, sometimes you don't. Sometimes, I'll see somebody at a conference and they'll say, hey, this really meant something. This really helped me, or whatever. Or you'll get an email. And that's really encouraging, because you're not sure, maybe that's going to be beneficial or not. I'm glad to hear that it was. So that's fantastic. I'm really glad.
That's good. Typically, just now, you've got about 20 different sort of AI workshops that you're delivering. Can you tell us a bit more about that, and about the kind of focus of the different sort of AI stuff?
I knew you were going to jump into AI, Pam. I knew it.
Wow. Can't help myself, hey.
You got a twinkle in the eye there.
Totally fine.
Yep.
So that's evolved over the last couple of years quite a bit. Yeah. I would say, yes, I probably have around 20-ish AI sessions that are in my PD catalog. That's something else people can find on the Control-Alt-Achieve site. My PD catalog is linked in there. They can see all of my sessions if they're interested in having me provide training, or if they just want to get to the resources. They're all there. And so, sure, I have some very basic introductory AI sessions, which I've been doing, now for the last 2.5 years. But I'm also excited that I'm starting to be able to add on sessions that go to the next step. So what I mean is, let's say I've got a workshop I do, the ABCs of AI. That's probably the most basic one that I've done probably more than any session that I do. And it's really for a school that's like, hey, we're new to this. We're trying to figure out what this is all about. And the ABCs stand for A, all about AI. What is AI and what are the
Sure.
tools that are out there? B, the benefits of AI. How can it help staff? How can it help students? And C, the concerns of AI. How do we address the potential misuses, academic integrity, things like that,
Yep.
all that stuff. A lot of times I do that as like a 3-hour workshop, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, just kind of depends. But schools will bring me in for a full day, or, do the lower grades in the morning and the upper grades in the afternoon, whatever the case.
Yeah.
So that's just a solid place to begin. But then on top of that, I've got all of these other ones that I've started to, break out there. And sometimes it's more like a specific use case, like AI for grading, and so I do a whole session on how AI can be used to assist, not replace a teacher, but assist by giving a second set of eyes, another opinion on grading and feedback. I have a session just on using AI to support struggling learners, so how can AI provide assistive technology and other sort of things to meet students where they're at? I have some sessions that are very specific to subject areas. I've got AI for social studies, AI for science, AI for librarians, AI for arts and music, AI for administrators. And so some of those have started to. And then sometimes it's tool based. I have 2 different sessions on brisk teaching. One that's more the teacher facing tools, another that is the brisk boost feature for students. So it just kind of depends. All of that I'm excited to see, though. It's starting to branch out and it's starting to get more specific as people are ready to go past just give us the introduction. Now they're like, okay, what can we do with this now? And I'm excited, especially not just the fact that we're getting more specific, like, sessions for certain subject areas and tools, but we're starting to see more schools interested in sessions about student use of AI. Because I totally understand. We got to start with staff, without a doubt. I'm not expecting anybody just to jump headlong into this with their students. We got to start with staff. They've all got to get trained on AI. They got to get comfortable with it, etc. And that may take the first year or 2 that we've been having with AI. I totally get that. But we're to the point now, it's like, okay, guys, we got to start taking the next step now. If, don't get me wrong, I'm in no way saying anything negative about it. Yet. Absolutely. AI is phenomenal for staff to support them in a million ways. And we could talk all about those kind of things, but it can't stop there. The ultimate goal of AI cannot be just to support staff. Yeah, that's great. But why are we here? We're here for students. That is what we do. Our job, ultimately, every single one of us, whether you're in the classroom, if you're an administrator, if you're, in the technology department, it does not matter. You are here ultimately for students. We're trying to help them be the best they can be, give them the best education possible. Well, AI needs to do the same. We need to get AI to our students ultimately. And thankfully, we now have tools that can do that. That wasn't the case, 2 years ago. But now we have so many tools that do care about data privacy, and they, are, compliant with COPPA, FERPA, GDPR, whatever the case, whatever it needs to be. They'll sign student data privacy agreements. They do all the right things, so that now, yes, we can give students personalized learning experiences, so I'm so excited to see we're finally starting to get to that. So my trainings, they're still all over the board, but I'm seeing more and more and more where they're ready for step 2 or step 3. And we're moving a little deeper into it.
I love that personalization. You had a video out a couple of months ago, and you'd said some AIs aren't able to be used by students, and that's fair enough, based on the age and data privacy, lots of different things. But there's other ways that we can use these tools with our students, and that is, as the teacher, you're using these tools and using it to create things like games. So I loved you chatting about AI games and how you can build these in the classroom. Can you talk a wee bit about these and the creative ways we can use these tools?
So that is a session that I do called Today's Special Classroom Guest, Mr. AI Chatterbot. That is the name of the session.
Yay.
I've tried. So here's the thing. Years ago, my session titles were very boring. If it was a session about, creative ways to use Google Docs in your classroom, it would be called Creative Google Docs Projects. That was the name of it,
Sure.
and now
Yeah.
it's called Docs Rocks or something like that. I'm getting better at
Sure.
coming up with
Yeah.
better names, because you got to entice people with names. Okay. But that session, that's what it's all about. Here's the idea. There's a lot of great ways we can impact students with AI, but I totally understand there may be limitations. It could be a school where they say, okay, I want to use this with students that are too young to use AI,
Yeah.
or I want to use it with my students, but we do not yet have these approved tools. They have not signed our student data privacy agreement tool, so we can't use that tool. Or maybe it's not that. Maybe the school just isn't ready yet. And so their policies are saying, you know what, at the moment, by our policy, we're not going to have students on the AI yet. There could be so many reasons. Well, let's not have that then stop us and say, well, okay, so we just can't use AI with students at all. Well, no, how about this? The analogy I always give is I say, have you ever had a classroom guest speaker? And most teachers would say, yes, they probably have. Maybe it was a parent came in to speak, or a community member, somebody from, the police department or the fire department, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or maybe they weren't there in person. Maybe you used Meet or Zoom and you interviewed an author, or you connected with a scientist, or you connected to a school in some other location. We've all done that.
Yes.
What if AI was the special guest? What if we invited Gemini or ChatGPT to come into our classroom and be a special guest? Now, again, we're not talking about the students touching it. They're not typing into ChatGPT or Gemini. The teacher is doing it, but they're projecting it up on the screen and they're engaging the students. And so I said, what would be some possibilities? And so I run through lots of them. I mean, the easiest, the simplest is the AI interview. That's just right away the most basic one. So you could say, okay, we've been learning about this particular person from, history, so again, I'm here in Ohio. So, I mean, maybe we're learning about Abe Lincoln, so, okay, we've been studying all about Abe Lincoln. Guess what, guys? Abraham Lincoln has come to join us in class today, and you can ask him anything you want. You can interview him. And so basically I'm going to tell Gemini or whatever to pretend to be Abraham Lincoln. And I have a very detailed prompt, and we can talk about that, because there are some completely understandable concerns and cautions when you're doing these sort of activities, and we want to get ahead of that. But for now, let's just say, sure, I'm going to have the AI pretend to be Abraham Lincoln, or somebody who just lived at a certain place and time, maybe not a named person, but I want to talk to somebody from ancient Egypt and talk about their daily life. Or it doesn't have to even be that. It could be a fictional character. We've been reading a book, and we've been reading Charlotte's Web. We want to interview Wilbur from Charlotte's Web, or Jay Gatsby from The Great Gatsby, or whatever the case might be. Or doesn't even have to be a person. It could be an animal. We've been learning about, how a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. Well, guess what, guys? A butterfly has joined us in class today. Just came out of its chrysalis. What do you want to ask it? I've even had teachers do things that are inanimate. There was a teacher they were doing a weather unit, and the students interviewed a hurricane. And so they got to ask the hurricane all questions, And so in a case like that, I do have a prompt that basically says, and this is all on the website. Anybody can copy the prompts, use them any way you want. But it's like, okay, you're going to be interviewed by the students in my class. This is their age range. Make sure your responses are appropriate for that age range, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what you're going to be. Make sure you embody that, perspective and style. And then I have a whole section in there, especially if you're doing this with a historical figure. There's a section that addresses, making sure that you are accurate, avoid biases, avoid stereotypes. If there are things that are more controversial topics, encourage critical thinking and discussion. If you don't know the answer to something, don't just make something up. Let us know that you're not sure, you don't have that information, but encourage more research, that kind of stuff. Because it could get a little tricky if you're interviewing somebody who actually lived And guys, history is messy. I mean, history is messy. We've all got a lot of things in our country's
Yeah.
history we look back on and we're like, yeah, that's not our best, that's not our
Not
finest
cool.
hour there, you know?
Yeah.
And you could have students in your class who come from a wide, diverse background. Some that history means a lot more to than others, you know?
Yes.
And we have to be sensitive to that. Now, I know some folks have said, and that's why you really shouldn't do that. That's why you really shouldn't do these activities because, you know, AI might get something wrong. It might have a bias, something like that might happen. And I appreciate that. I do. I acknowledge and appreciate that. I would go the other way, though. I would say because AI can make mistakes, because it can have a bias, because things could be sensitive. That's exactly why we need to do this in our classroom, because what better place to teach students how to respond to an AI and to critically evaluate it and to reflect on it and to ask good follow-up questions. We need to model that for them because okay, it's not like they're going to use it. They are using it. They are using these tools right now.
They are.
They need to learn how to think critically and say, well, now, so let's put it this way. Let's say you are doing an activity like this and the AI does say something that's not exactly right. And I don't want to scare people. It's not like it's just going to be spouting off all these things that are wrong. They're very solid. If you're using a frontier model like Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT, you're going to get good answers. But if you do get something that's not right, that's not a time to panic. I mean, I always think back to like when I was a little kid, if I was watching a show with my parents and they forgot there was that one racy scene in the show. So my dad like grab a blanket and try to cover the TV real quick or whatever. That's not what we need to do. We need to say, so class, why do you think the AI said that? And now we can start talking about, well, how are AIs trained and where are they pulling data from? And how this is a learning experience so that they're better equipped going forward to
we open that discussion.
Absolutely. You know,
I mean, is there an argument here that this is the most important literacy we could be teaching right now?
It is. It's so important. It has to be in there. And so this is an easy way to start doing that. And again, I don't foresee that being a common problem, but I think it's worth addressing that. Having said that, we can do these sort of activities where our students are interviewing, you know, animals and characters from stories and all kinds of things, and they're engaged. They're asking questions they're interested in that we never would have thought to ask, that maybe it's not included in that part of the textbook, but hey, I'm curious about, you know, this or that or whatever. And I even had a teacher tell me the other day that what she loves about this is doing this prior to the instruction. So let's say, I think the example was, she said is a social studies class and she knows her students are going to be reading about, you know, somebody XYZ from history. And she knows they don't know this person. They don't really necessarily care. So what she likes to do is do this activity first where, hey, this person from history is your guest. We all get to start asking questions. They learn about that person and they feel a little bit of a connection. Now the teacher says, now let's read that chapter in the textbook. Now let's read it. And they come to it going, oh, I know him. I know her. I talked to them. And it makes a better connection now when we go in to actually learn the material and read the material, because we've already got that connection forming there. So there's that, but then there's so many other things. I mean, you can do an AI debate. I love that one, where you basically say, here's a topic from class, give the AI one side, the students take the other, and we have an AI debate, which is really great because AI is very good at debating. And so it raises the critical thinking. The students have to really dig in and think critically. Then there's AI games. I recently did a blog post on creating a choose your own adventure game using AI. Now, if I were to create one myself, I could do it, but it would take a lot of time. And so this is a way where you can say, hey, listen, I want you to make an interactive choose your own adventure game for my class. Here's the topic. Here are the key objectives. This is what I'm trying to teach my students. Weave these into the story and let's go. And so basically it'll tell the story, give you 3 or 4 choices. And as a class, we can now all say, okay, well, who wants A, who wants B, who wants C. Maybe we debate about it. Like, well, why should we choose to go here or go there? And then the students vote or whatever, and we type in the response and we get the next part of the story, and it keeps building this story where it is weaving in our objectives we're trying to teach, and the students are having to make, good choices about, okay, well, what's the best option here? So all of these things, the AI is creating this for us easily. It's something that if we give them a good prompt, it can be very well grounded in the content we're trying to cover, and the students are engaged. And I think that's what's so important, is getting students to buy into the learning process, to not just be, it's one thing, sure, have a teacher up front teaching and the kids are all sitting nice in their desk taking notes. Yeah, fine, that's nice, they're all behaving, but they're just like passive recipients. The more we can get students engaged in the learning and active in the learning, the more that's going to stick and the more that they're going to get excited about. So I think, and so all those prompts are right there. They're available. My choose your own adventure prompt is gigantic, but it needs to be that. But you can just copy it and just fill in your stuff, just plug in your stuff, and have it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Where should people get started if they're wanting to get started with AI?
Right.
Is it like these big AIs that are open to the public, or should they be going down the teacher route and go like Brisk, Magic AI? What's the difference between these, and where should they get started?
Ultimately, I think it is incredibly valuable for an educator or anybody to be able to use a foundational model. So you mentioned Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, things like that. There is an absolute value in going straight to the source. So I think that is ultimately a very important skill. But I also know not everybody's there yet. They might feel a little intimidated by a blank screen with a blinking cursor. What do I type in? What do I tell you? Tell them, guys, just talk to it like a person. You don't have to know anything special, but I get that. And so that's one reason to use some of these educational wrappers that come around. The second is those foundational models, they are basically just what they are, a chat tool. Some of these educational wrappers bring value add. They bring something else on top of it where they say, we're going to piggyback off of, because if you're using Magic School or Brisk or School AI or, any of these tools, there's so many amazing ones out there. They don't have their own AI. They're piggybacking on top of them. They're using Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT. That's what's running in the background. They're just, building on top of that there, but they're providing maybe additional features. So, I do trainings on all of those. So Brisk Teaching, School AI, Magic School. There's so many of those. I love them all. I think they're fantastic. I think they're phenomenal. It comes down to a lot of times what the school is willing to approve and adopt, and then that's fine. So, I was just at a training where the school had chosen Magic School. So that's what I trained on. Then I was at a school where they've chosen to roll out Brisk. So that's what I train on. A lot of times it's going to be that. Now, if a school comes to me and asks for advice, I'm happy to help counsel them on that. But really, it's a matter of, what they decide to say, we're going to settle on this, because then they can provide targeted support and instruction for the staff. And I think that's really good. So I guess my answer would be both. I think it's good at the moment to have both. Have a comfort level and a knowledge of how to use the foundational models. Now, of those, they're all great. I would recommend Gemini, and it's not because I'm just a Google fanboy. That is not the reason. Although, sure, that makes me more open to them, maybe. But no, I use I pay for ChatGPT. I have a paid ChatGPT license, and then I also use Claude. I use Gemini, so I use them all. But as an educator, you absolutely should be using Gemini. And the biggest reason is not the most exciting. It's data privacy protection. About a couple months ago, Google announced that they have now made Gemini a part of the core services in Google Workspace. And that may not sound like much, but it's incredibly important. So basically, I'm sure everywhere around the world, we are obligated by law to not share personally personally
No.
identifiable information about our students,
Yep.
PII. We have to be careful about what we put into these. Well, if I go to Chat GPT and I just type stuff in, anything I type in, it's fair game.
Sure.
OpenAI can use that to train future models for
Mhm.
advertising, for anything. They can do whatever they want with it. Same thing's true if I'm using a personal account on Gemini. Same
Yep.
thing's true with Claude. Not so if you're using a school account with Gemini.
Yeah.
If you log into Gemini with a school account, you get all of the same data privacy protections you have for Gmail, Drive, all of that, which is basically no human will read anything you type.
Mhm.
They will not use it for advertising. They will not train future models. They will not share it outside of your school district. So there's no worries. You can use, if you feel safe saving something in your Drive, you can put it in Gemini because it's all protected.
Sure.
It's never going to leave your school. So for educators, I say definitely get into Gemini, not just for that, but secondly, oh my gosh, it's good. If you said, okay, well, I used it a year ago when it was barred, or whatever, that it wasn't that great. Folks, oh my gosh, Gemini is absolutely cutting edge.
Totally
It is
different.
right. Yeah. When you go and you do all these comparisons and stuff, Chat GPT and Gemini, they're always just neck and neck with each other now. It is absolutely the cutting edge leading AI model that is out there. And they've added so many great features to it, from the deep research feature, the Canvas feature for coding, the fact checking tool that's in it, the gems that they built in. It is such a good tool. So
It's there,
I would
isn't
say
it?
absolutely
Yeah.
understand how to use a foundational model. And then, yes, find a tool that is from a company that really understands the value of education and student data privacy, and they're excited about taking the next step to say, okay, I think of things like Snorkel or tools like that, where they're like, hey, listen, we're going to build on this and we're going to do a value add. We're going to give you something extra that allows you to truly impact your students, provide them with really good personalized feedback, whatever the case might be. And so who knows, maybe these things over time are going to merge, and maybe, it's going to be like, okay, well, now Gemini does all of those things. I don't know. Today, though, not yet. There's an absolute reason to have a core foundational model and a really good educational add-on on top of that.
Yeah. So if somebody's listening right now and they are concerned about the things that they've been putting onto ChatGPT, onto a public version of Gemini, where does their data go to? And can I access somebody else's data and questions and answers? So I'm thinking about if somebody, say, has put up a document that they have put into ChatGPT to say, read this and give me a summary.
Right.
Can somebody else in like their neighbor, go on to Gemini and say, oh, give me my neighbor's data from this document? How does that all work?
Right.
Like, are you able to explain that a bit?
So I'll do my best. I think the short answer would be no. I wouldn't have a worry about something that specific. So when I say they're allowed to use your data any way they want, what that typically means is when you type things into ChatGPT or Gemini or these things, the company is going to collect all that data, and they're going to use that as a part of the training data most often for their next model, the next version. So when it's, ChatGPT 5 or, Gemini 3 or whatever the next thing is, they need a lot of data. They need tons of data to train that next model. And the interactions between people and the AI, that's very valuable data. That's very helpful data to train the next model. Now, when I say they might use it to train that, it's a little bit more fuzzy than that. It's not that, oh, sure, they'll feed that document, that conversation, they'll feed that into the new model, but it's not that the new model's keeping a copy of it. It's that the new model is learning from it. So the AI models work a lot. They are patterned after the human brain. So the way that AI models are built, they're built on the idea of like neural connections. So when you have a brain, if I were to ask you to explain how photosynthesis works, you could tell me that. And if I said, well, give me the source, tell me how you know that, give me the citation, you're like, what do you mean? I learned it. It's in there now. I can tell you exactly where it came from. Neither can Gemini or ChatGPT. If you say,
Okay.
well, how do you know that? We say, well, Eric, no, hold on a second. When I use ChatGPT or Gemini, it'll give me links.
Yep.
No, those aren't links that it learned from. It's saying, if you want to learn more, here are links that are similar to this. They're not saying that's where I learned this.
Yep.
It can't really go back and just tell you this is where it came from, because what it has is basically a model of the world. It has a model of knowledge in there, not an actual carbon copy, verbatim copy of that information. It has what they call weights, it has connections, it has all of that stuff. And so if you put something into ChatGPT, no, it's not quite that somebody later could just download a copy of it. Now, don't get me wrong, definitely things do get saved into the system. And if somebody's good enough at hacking, a lot of times it's more some really, really clever prompt engineering and stuff like that. You may be able to get some stuff out that you shouldn't have been able to see. That's always, so that is why we say, use a tool like Gemini on your education account, because there's a lot more safety built in it. Nothing's perfect. Nothing is perfect. But there's more safeguards in there. But no, if you were to go and say, hey, give me something that somebody else gave you, absolutely not. I mean, the AI is not going to do that. It's going to, first of all, just say no, but it would not technically even have the ability to do that.
That's reassuring.
That's really reassuring, Have you been having like discussions or workshops with schools around like sort of custom AIs specifically for like their departments or their purpose or their school, where people are starting to think forward to like, bespoke customizations just for a specific aspect of their delivery?
Are you thinking like the agents?
Is anyone talking about that? Like agentive stuff and like custom GPTs and gems and stuff.
Absolutely. So that's kind of where it's been right now, is things like, custom GPTs, gems, but a lot of it's been things like Notebook LM. Because with Notebook LM, that's a good example of what you're talking about. So let's say there's a school who gets the same question over and over and over again from parents about, what do I do when my child is sick? How do I handle medications, whatever? Well, you can take a tool like Notebook LM and you can feed all of your student handbooks, all of your, guidelines, anything you want to feed it into there. And now they've just recently, I don't know, I've been doing trainings all week, so I'm a little behind. But I was just reading on one of my feeds, that with Notebook LM, we now can just have a generally public link that anybody can access a notebook. They can't change what's in the notebook, but they can chat with it. So now it's much easier for a school to build that parent chatbot where they load up all their vetted, verified content that they want, give it some directions, and now give the parents a link and say, hey, listen, absolutely call us. We want to help you. But if you can't get in touch with us, here's an option. You can chat with book that we've put together. Just talk to it like normal. It's going to reference all the files and it'll give you the answer that you're looking for to help get you what you need right now. And so once you take that idea, then schools really run with it. I mean, I've had schools talk about, we're going to load up all of our curriculum maps. We're going to load up all of our state standards. We're going to load up all of these things, share them within our department. And anytime there's questions, we're going to go to that. Like, okay, I'm trying to plan something for the middle school. I need to know. So what gets covered in elementary in science? Let's ask the notebook because it can tell that. So that is already happening today. People are doing that now.
That's cool.
And that's really I think Notebook LM is a great tool for that. Other things like, custom GPTs and gems, absolutely. I see that coming. I think what we're going to be seeing with that is going to be a little bit more along the lines of this. So my vision for what's going to happen with gems is people are going to start making really good gems. Like somebody will go in and say, okay, and if somebody doesn't know what a gem is, it's the same as a custom GPT. It's just a prompt that has been saved that can be reused. If you say, let's say I'm a science teacher and I need to create school safe, student friendly, hands-on science experiments. And I decide, you know what? I've been going to Gemini or ChatGPT over and over again, and I keep telling it the same prompt every time I need
Mhm.
this. Would it be nice just to save it? Sure. So I go to
Mhm.
Gemini, I click on the gems, I click create a custom gem, and I say, here's my prompt, help me create this hands-on, student safe, school friendly, whatever,
Yep.
science experiment. Here's my standards. I load up all the files. Then I can just save that and I never
Mhm.
have to do it again. Now I just go back and click the gem and it says, what's the grade level? Grade 7. What's the topic? Food
Mhm.
webs, whatever. And it goes, okay, give me a moment. Zzz, it runs through everything and creates it. So basically, what's going to happen is educators all over the world are going to start
Yes.
making really good gems and
Yep.
sharing them, making them
Mhm.
available. And people are going to start pulling them together in these massive collections.
Uh-huh.
And it's almost like we're going to be building our own version of something like Magic School or all those ones that have the little, all the prompt tools. We'll
Yep.
start curating our own and saying, here's a list of 100 awesome gems for math. Here's, 50 great gems for, special ed or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then that's going to be really great because that can be done at a grassroots level. People can
Yeah.
create really awesome gems, share them out, and then people can use them. So yes, I am seeing this when you talk about customization.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Basically,
Definitely
yeah.
gyms with educators for sure, notebook LM on a larger system level. And then
Mhm.
beyond that, without a doubt, there are schools that are starting to look at doing things like wanting to have their own on-premises AI, like saying
Right.
we want to have our own
Okay.
AI server, where
Sure.
and there I've heard of schools that are starting to do that, where they're putting a server where they load up, a local model there, so they have
Uh-huh.
total control over it and
Wow.
Wow.
customizing it. Yes, we're starting to now. That takes a school that has a tech department that has enough resources and
Oh yeah.
connections to be able to do that kind of thing. But I'm already hearing about schools saying, yep, we've got a server and we're figuring this out and we're getting
That's
something
cool.
look, because there's a lot of open source. You think of
Yeah.
Llama, you think of things like that you
Yeah.
can run locally, and they're starting to spin up their own local in-house custom bespoke AI tools,
That's
so
cool.
That's
that's going to
incredible.
be happening too. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that happening. The minute I discovered like custom GPTs and then obviously
Oh yeah.
gems, I was like,
Yep.
holy smoke, this is a game changer. Like
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's that bit. And for us as a business, like we used to make all of our learning experiences for the Digitize learning platform. We did it manually with human beings. And then,
Yeah.
Mhm.
eventually we got to the stage where we had a custom version that could just spit out one of our learning experiences for us.
Yep.
Mhm.
Game changer, eh? And actually,
Absolutely.
you can totally see AI versions of all of us educators, can't you? Where they know our
Yeah.
curriculum resources and approaches and all that. Yeah,
And
that's
that is awesome, but I always want to be careful that I say, there's a concern that teachers might have. They may get excited. Oh, this is fantastic. This is wonderful. And then they pause and go, but wait, what does this mean for me? Am
Yeah.
I going to be out of a job? And I do an entire keynote where that's exactly what we focus on is, you know, is AI going to replace a teacher? Now, I can't predict the future, but I can tell you my philosophy on it. And my philosophy is no, no. AI
yeah,
is not here
Uh-huh.
to replace a teacher. I always tell people, back when I was in college, I was a TA, which here stands for a teacher assistant. It's a way you can, earn some money in college as a teacher
Sure.
assistant. So I helped grade papers and create notes and stuff. Well, when I
Okay.
became a public school teacher, I wondered, well, where's my TA? I don't have.
yeah,
Well, we don't get those. Well, now you do.
yeah. You
AI
got
is
one.
your TA.
Yep.
AI
Yeah,
is your TA. It is your assistant. It is there to
yes,
assist and help you. I tell
Yep.
people AI is not here to do your job. It's here to help you do your job better. It's to help you be the
Love that.
best teacher you can possibly be. But
Yep.
it means buying into that. A teacher has to decide, I'm going to leverage this, because in the end, if budgets do get tight and people are trying to apply for a job somewhere, and during the interview process, they're like, yeah, I don't really do much with AI, compared to somebody who's willing to leverage it. It's like somebody saying, yeah, I don't really use computers. As long as I don't have to use a computer, I'm happy to come on board. You're like, nobody would hire you in that case. So it's important that educators, please, please, please start using these tools. This is not a fad. It's not going away. Use them in your daily life. Ask it to plan a vacation for you, make a meal plan, ask it things, just use it and get comfortable with it, and then start using it in your classroom, because that's what it's all about, is having it help us be the best we can be. So we have better insights into our students. So we have more time to personally interact with them, so that we can design engaging learning experiences for our students, and then it helps the students become the best they can be. But that's our job right now, is to learn this technology and learn how to use it, because then we're not going to get replaced. We're going to get improved, and we're going to be better and better.
And that's a really cool takeaway, actually, for us to kind of finish up on, isn't it? It's like, that is the big worry people have. Like, this is coming for our jobs. And and it's totally not. But embrace it now.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, listen, Eric, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure. Thank you. It's been a real privilege to talk to you tonight.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's been amazing.
And thank you for what you guys do. I mean, I know we've said, you wonder, does it make a difference? Whatever. I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for what you do. Every little thing that we put out there, somebody, it's affecting them, it's inspiring them, it's connecting with them, it's encouraging them. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Digitize Fully Charged podcast. Eric, it was a pleasure to have you on, and honestly, we loved editing and chatting together with you. If you are interested in our other episodes, please do go and find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, absolutely anywhere that you get your podcasts, you will find us on there. And we've had some previously incredible guests on the show. You can also find us on social media, so you can find our TikTok, you can find our YouTube, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, all the best social media places. You will find us there at Digitize Crew, and we really do appreciate you sharing any videos that you find, sharing the episodes with others. Honestly, each episode takes us about a weekend to pull together, and then after school during the week I am organising guests, I am bringing together pictures and bringing together clips, I'm sharing to social media, I'm doing absolutely everything. So it takes genuinely hours to pull everything together. So we really do appreciate any comments, any shares, any likes, even just recommendations to others, just letting them know that you have enjoyed the podcast. So yeah, please do share it out with others. Please do get the word out there. We're putting in a ton of work to bring you this fantastic content. So we really do, honestly, it means the world to us if anybody engages with us about the podcast. So thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Niall. I've been joined by Pam Curry, and we'll see you for our next episode on Tuesday. Cheers. Bye.